My name is Zoe, I'm 29 years old, and I gave my entire life to my family. I left university when my father died, so I could raise my younger siblings. I worked 2 jobs for years, while my younger sister lived her life, without ever having to carry the burden I carried. I never asked for anything in return. I never thought I would need to. I believed that family meant sacrifice, and I believed that one day my family would remember everything I had done for them. I had no idea that the day would come when they would make me regret every sacrifice I had ever made. My name is Zoe. I'm 29 years old, and for most of my life, my family was the center of everything I did. I never imagined that I would have to choose between my own future and the people I loved. But when my father died, everything changed. I was 18 years old when it happened. At 18, most people are thinking about college, friends, relationships, and what they want their future to look like. I was thinking about how I was going to keep my family together. My father had been the person who made our family feel secure. When he was there, I never thought about money. I never thought about bills. I never thought about what would happen if something went wrong. I was his daughter. I was supposed to be protected. But after he died, I realized that the person who had always protected us was gone. My mother was devastated. My younger brother was still a child. And my younger sister Sarah was even younger. There was fear everywhere. Fear about money. Fear about the future. Fear about what would happen to all of us. I was still trying to understand my own grief when I started thinking about everyone else. I looked at my mother. I looked at my younger brother. I looked at Sarah. And I made a decision. I would take care of them. I would give up university. At first, I told myself it would only be temporary. I thought I could leave university for a while, help my family get through the hardest period, and then return. I thought I would eventually get my education. I thought I would eventually build a career. I thought I would eventually have a life of my own. But life doesn't always follow the plans we make. The temporary decision became years. And the years became my entire life. I found a job. Then I found another one. I started working 2 jobs because one income wasn't enough. During the day, I worked. At night, I worked again. There were days when I was so tired that I could barely keep my eyes open. There were nights when I came home and didn't even have the energy to change my clothes. But I kept going. Because every time I thought about stopping, I remembered my family. I remembered that my younger siblings needed someone. I remembered that my mother needed help. So I continued. I paid the bills. I bought groceries. I helped with school expenses. I paid for things my younger brother needed. I paid for things Sarah needed. Whenever there was a problem, I tried to solve it. Whenever there was something the family couldn't afford, I tried to find a way. I didn't think about whether it was fair. I didn't think about what I was losing. I simply thought that this was what family did. I believed that if someone you loved needed you, you showed up. So I showed up. Again and again. For years. While I was working 2 jobs, Sarah was living a completely different life. She was my younger sister. She was free to make her own choices. She could focus on herself. She could enjoy her life. She didn't have the responsibilities I had taken on, and I never blamed her for that. At least, that's what I told myself. Whenever I saw her enjoying her life while I was exhausted from work, I told myself that it was okay. Whenever I saw her spending money on things I couldn't afford for myself, I told myself that she deserved to enjoy her life. Whenever I had to cancel something I wanted to do because my family needed money, I told myself that family came first. I never expected a thank you. I never demanded recognition. I never sat my family down and told them everything I had sacrificed. I just kept doing it. Years passed. I became so used to putting everyone else first that I almost forgot what it felt like to put myself first. My own dreams became something I rarely thought about. University became something I had left behind. My career became something I was still trying to build. My personal life became something I kept postponing. There was always another bill, another problem, another responsibility, another reason to wait. And then, when I was 29, something happened that I never expected. I received the biggest opportunity of my life. An international company noticed my work. I had worked hard for years. And suddenly that hard work was opening a door I never thought would open. The company offered to send me to London for 3 weeks of international training. London. For 3 weeks. I remember the moment I heard the news. I couldn't believe it. After everything I had given up, after all those years of working and sacrificing, something was finally happening for me. It wasn't for my family. It wasn't because someone needed my help. It wasn't because there was another emergency. It was an opportunity for me. I was going to London. I was going to receive international training. And when I came back, I believed my life might finally change. I thought this could be the beginning of something new. I thought maybe I could finally move forward. Maybe I could build the career I had once dreamed about. Maybe I could finally have something that belonged to me. I was genuinely happy. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. I had worked for this. I had earned this. And I wanted to believe that my family would be proud of me too. So I prepared for the trip. I made sure everything at home was taken care of before I left. I didn't want my mother to struggle while I was gone. I didn't want anything to go wrong. Even though I was finally getting an opportunity for myself, I was still thinking about my family. That was simply who I had become. I packed my things. I prepared for the 3-week training. And then I left. When I arrived in London, everything felt different. For the first time in years, I was somewhere no one knew me as the daughter who paid the bills. No one knew me as the sister who sacrificed her education. No one knew me as the person everyone called whenever something went wrong. I was simply Zoe, a professional, a woman who had worked hard enough to earn an international opportunity. And I loved that feeling. The training was demanding. There were long days. There was a lot to learn. But I didn't complain. I gave it everything I had. I wanted to prove that I deserved to be there. I wanted to prove that all those years of hard work had meant something. And slowly, I started becoming more confident. I began imagining what my life could look like after London. I imagined returning home with new skills. I imagined moving forward in my career. I imagined finally being able to build the life I had postponed for so long. I was excited. I was hopeful. And I believed that when I returned home, I would finally be able to tell my family that everything was changing. I didn't know that my family had already made a decision that would change everything. For 3 weeks, I focused on my training. I gave it my full attention. Every day, I reminded myself that this was my chance. A chance to finally do something for myself. A chance to finally step out of the role I had been trapped in for years. And when the 3 weeks were over, I was ready to come home. I was happy. I was proud. I was thinking about my family. I was thinking about what I would tell them. I imagined walking through the front door. I imagined seeing my mother. I imagined seeing Sarah. I imagined putting my suitcase down and finally feeling like I was home. I had no idea what was waiting for me. When I finally returned, I went straight home. I had been away for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, that's all. I arrived with my luggage and walked toward the house I had always considered home. But before I even reached the door, something felt wrong. I looked at the lock. It was different. I stopped. I stared at it. For a moment, I couldn't understand what I was seeing. The lock had been changed. I tried my key. It didn't work. I tried again. Nothing. I stood there holding my suitcase, staring at the door. My mind immediately started searching for an explanation. Maybe something had happened while I was gone. Maybe there had been a problem. Maybe my mother had changed the lock for some reason. I didn't know. So I rang the bell. Once, then again. I waited. Finally, the door opened. Sarah was standing there. My younger sister. She looked at me. Then she looked at my suitcase. Then she looked back at me. And she smiled. It wasn't the smile of someone who was happy to see her sister after 3 weeks. It was different. There was something in that smile that I couldn't understand. I looked at her. Why was the lock changed? She didn't answer immediately. She simply looked at me from head to toe. Then she said, "This house is mine now." For a moment, I honestly thought I had misunderstood her. "What?" She repeated herself. "This house is mine now." I stared at her. I couldn't process what she was saying. "This is our house." Sarah shook her head. Not anymore. My heart started beating faster. I asked her where Mom was. She told me she was inside. I stepped toward the door. But the feeling I had in that moment was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I was standing outside the place I had called home for years. And suddenly, I felt like a stranger. I walked inside. My mother was there. I looked at her. Mom? She looked at me. There was no surprise, no confusion. It was almost as if she had been expecting this moment. I looked from her to Sarah, then back to my mother. What is going on? My mother was quiet. I waited. Finally, she said, Zoe, eventually, one daughter had to get the house. I stared at her. What does that mean? She looked toward Sarah. Then she said the words that broke something inside me. We chose Sarah. I couldn't speak. For years I had worked. For years, I had sacrificed. For years, I had helped keep this family together. And now I was standing in front of my own mother, being told that another daughter had been chosen to have the home. I looked around. Then I realized something else. My belongings were gone. I asked where my things were. Sarah answered casually. I put everything in storage. I stared at her. You put my things in storage? She shrugged. You weren't here. I looked at my mother. You let her do this? My mother didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, Sarah is going to stay here. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I reminded them that I had spent years helping with the house. I reminded them that I had paid bills. I reminded them that I had supported the family. I reminded them that while everyone else was living their lives, I had been working 2 jobs. I had given up university. I had given up years of my youth. I had given up opportunities. I had done all of it for them. And now I was being told that the house wasn't mine. My mother looked at me. Then she said, You have your career now. Those words stayed with me. You have your career now. As if the years I had sacrificed didn't matter. As if everything I had done could simply be erased because I finally had an opportunity of my own. I looked at Sarah. She was standing there like she had won something. Maybe she believed she had. Maybe she believed I would fight. Maybe she expected me to scream. Maybe she expected me to beg. But I didn't. Something inside me had changed. I had spent my entire life fighting for them. And in that moment, I realized I didn't want to fight anymore. I looked at my mother. I looked at Sarah. Then I picked up my suitcase. I said nothing. I simply walked away. They probably thought I was defeated. They probably thought they had taken everything from me. They probably thought that without the house, without my family, without the life I had spent years protecting, I had nothing left. But they were wrong, because something had finally awakened inside me. I had spent years believing that my life belonged to my family. Now I understood that it belonged to me. I walked away from that house. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I didn't ask them to change their minds. I didn't demand the house back. I simply left. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. The pain was there. Of course it was. I was hurt. I was angry. I was disappointed. But underneath all of that was something else. Clarity. I finally saw my life for what it had been. I had sacrificed my education. I had worked 2 jobs. I had supported my family. I had spent years putting everyone else first. And when I finally got one opportunity for myself, they decided I was no longer needed. That realization hurt, but it also freed me. I didn't know what the future would look like. I didn't know where I would live. I didn't know how everything would work out. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to the person I had been before. I was going to build my own life. I was going to focus on my career. I was going to stop allowing everyone else to decide what I deserved. And most importantly, I was going to stop sacrificing myself for people who had no problem sacrificing me. The next days were difficult. I had to deal with the reality of what had happened. I had to accept that the home I had always considered mine was no longer a place where I belonged. I had to accept that my mother had chosen Sarah, and I had to accept that my family had made their decision. But I didn't let that decision destroy me. Instead, I focused on the opportunity I had been given. The London training had changed something inside me. It had shown me that there was a world outside the role I had been living in. There was a world where I could be successful. There was a world where my work could be recognized. There was a world where I could finally build something for myself. So I kept going. I worked harder. I focused on my career. I refused to let the betrayal become the end of my story. And slowly, things began to change. The opportunity I had received before London became even more important. My work was noticed. My future became clearer. For the first time, I wasn't working simply to survive. I was working towards something. I had spent years believing that I was stuck. But I wasn't stuck. I had simply been carrying everyone else with me. Once I stopped carrying them, I could finally move. And then, exactly 1 month after I had been thrown out of my own home, something happened that I never expected. My family came looking for me. Not at my apartment, not through a simple phone call. They came to my office. They stood outside my workplace for hours. The same people who had believed I had lost everything were now waiting for me. They wanted to see me. They wanted to talk to me. They wanted something from me. I was told they were outside. I knew immediately who they were. I didn't need to see them. I didn't need anyone to explain. I already knew. A month earlier, they had watched me walk away with a suitcase. They had believed they had won. They had believed they had taken my home. They had believed they had pushed me out of the family. But now they were standing outside my office, waiting for me. And this time, I had a choice. I could go outside. I could listen. I could ask them why they had done it. I could demand an explanation. I could remind them of everything I had sacrificed. I could tell them how much they had hurt me, but I didn't. I refused to meet them. I didn't walk outside. I didn't argue. I didn't give them the confrontation they may have expected. I simply said that I wasn't going to see them. For years, I had been the person who always answered, the person who always helped, the person who always showed up, the person who always sacrificed. But that person was gone. I had finally understood something. I didn't need to prove my worth to them. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their house. I didn't need their apology. I didn't need them to admit that I had been right. I had already chosen myself. And once I made that choice, I couldn't go back. I thought about the girl I had been at 18. A young woman who had given up university because her family needed her. A young woman who had worked 2 jobs. A young woman who believed that sacrifice was the price of love. I wished I could go back and tell her something. I would tell her that helping your family is not wrong. Loving your family is not wrong. Sacrificing for the people you love is not wrong. But losing yourself completely for people who don't value you is something different. For years, I thought my sacrifices were the proof of my love. Now I realize that love should never require you to disappear. My family had chosen Sarah. They had changed the locks. They had put my belongings in storage. They had taken the home I believed I had helped protect. And maybe, at the time, they thought they had taken everything from me. But they hadn't. They had only taken something I had spent years believing I needed. They had accidentally given me the freedom to build a life that was finally mine. 1 month later, they were standing outside my office. And I was inside. I was working. I was moving forward. I was building the future I had once sacrificed. I didn't hate them. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to hurt them the way they had hurt me. My silence was enough. My distance was enough. My new life was enough. Because the greatest thing I had gained wasn't money. It wasn't a career. It wasn't independence. It was the understanding that I mattered too. For years, I had been there for everyone. Now I was finally there for myself. And when I think about the day I returned from London, carrying my suitcase and standing outside a house that no longer belonged to me, I don't think about it as the day I lost everything. I think about it as the day I finally woke up. Because that day, something inside me changed. I stopped begging to be valued. I stopped trying to earn love. I stopped believing that being a good daughter meant giving up my entire life. I stopped allowing other people to decide what I deserved. And I started living. My family may have believed that changing the lock would keep me outside forever. They were right about one thing. I never went back. But they were wrong about why. I didn't stay away because I had nowhere to go. I stayed away because I finally had somewhere better to go. Forward. And when they stood outside my office 1 month later, waiting for me to come out, I made the decision I should have made years earlier. I chose myself. I chose my future. I chose my peace. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel guilty about it. My name is Zoe. I'm 29 years old, and I gave my entire life to my family. But when they took away the one thing I thought I had left, they unknowingly gave me something far more valuable. They gave me my life back.